Hey everyone, welcome back to Movies in the Middle. Thanks for coming back and for another review. Today we're going to be talking about Doctor Sleep. So, Doctor Sleep is the sequel to The Shining. So, I think that might be like the latest sequel we've ever had made. Um, and it was directed by Mike Flanagan. And so he went to Towson University, which is really cool because that's where I went to college. So, it's pretty cool. And Mike Flanagan's it's interesting because he uh, was able to write, direct, and edit this all himself, and he's worked on Haunting of Hill House, which he was able to do the same thing, and he's worked on a couple other smaller horror movies, and like the fact that he's already has that much authority is really cool. Gives me a lot of hope. But it's really cool, and so this is probably his biggest so far that he's done. It stars Ewan McGregor, and it's basically about the um, now that Danny from the original movie, the child, now that he's older, him dealing with being in this society, still having the Shining, trying to shut it down, not using it, trying to deal with what happened in the hotel. So the Doctor Sleep is actually a sequel to The Shining that Stephen King wrote. So it is they did base it off of the book. And so I haven't actually read either of the books just yet. I want to see how they compare. But the movie that they made off Doctor Sleep, I know it takes a little bit from what was supposed to happen in The Shining and what they didn't put in versus what they did put in, what actually happens in Doctor Sleep in the book. So it's kind of a mix of everything, and it's basically like I said, about Danny trying to subvert his powers and not really use them. Trying to he's an alcoholic. He has PTSD, so it's really tough for him. And he actually has another person, a smaller child, that he finds or finds him, and they together kind of figure out how to use their powers and to how to store them away and when to use them in the midst of a new group of villains. There's one main one, but it's kind of this cult, and these people basically, for anybody who has the Shining, these powers, they have a certain what they call steam in them, and these villains will slowly torture and then kill these people and use the steam to keep themselves alive. So this was a really good movie. I really liked it. I was a little hesitant going into it because I know how well received The Shining is um, as a book, but mostly as the movie. Everybody's very um, they prize that movie because of what Kubrick was able to do with it. And this movie definitely doesn't feel like The Shining. It has its own feel. It has more of the Stephen King book adaptation to a movie feel, and that's good because I think it was a really good choice for Flanagan not to try and imitate Kubrick and to like there are a couple shots that are uh, kind of based off of the same sort of techniques that Kubrick would do, the same sort of style or tone. But other than that, it's really all Flanagan's direction. He doesn't really like, try to take a whole lot from Kubrick, and it's great because I feel like if he had tried to, one of two things would have happened. It either would have just seemed like we're just trying to redo The Shining, really, and not have it be its own thing if it went well, or if it didn't go well, then it's just an attempt and complete fail, and would have just flopped. So I'm really glad that this was like a tasteful way to do the sequel, kind of like when I saw Mary Poppins Returns. It was kind of tasteful. It didn't ruin anything of the first one, and it added a little bit, and it was a good, fun follow up. Obviously, this movie isn't exactly like all fun, but it is very entertaining. I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything, but the movie overall, it's got pretty much three, like all movies, but this one in particular feels like it has three very distinct acts. And it is a long movie. It's about 2.5 hours, I think, um, and it is long. The first act is probably the longest act, and it drags a little bit, but it's setting up a lot. I will say that I think some of it may not have been quite necessary. There's a lot that goes on in the beginning that it's a lot of different people at once, lots of different subplots, lots of different um, angles going on, and it can get a little confusing at first. They do handle it well, but just right at the beginning, it seems like it might be a lot first to figure out what's happening, although it does keep you engaged. Then towards the second act is where it really starts to get going, and that's when I think it really picks up. It gets to be a better. It's an interesting second act because a lot of things happen that you're like, oh, so that's just over now. Now what? And it's interesting because normally you know with sequels and everything, it tries to drag out a plot or a subplot, and this one just boom, done, done, done. And a lot of subplots and plots are dealt with very quickly, so that leads to what's going to be next. And then the third act happens, and again, I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but I will say I had two reactions to watching the third act. My first one was I have to think on this to see narratively and contextually, how do I feel about what they did? Does it work? How is it in the book? And do I think that they could have gone a different way with it? My other reaction was, holy crap, that was cool. It was. If you've seen the trailers, if you haven't seen the trailers, um, I will put the time in the description to where you can skip to if you don't want to know anything. If you have seen the trailers, you know what I'm talking about when I say that we do revisit the hotel a little bit. That comes up a lot in the third act. Um, basically it's no secret that Danny does go to the hotel. It's not just a lot of flashbacks. There is some action that goes on in the hotel that's new. And what I my thing is, it was extremely cool to see that because I obviously never saw The Shining in theaters unless it's come back for a revival. I would love to see that, but I never have been able to. So it was really cool just as a fan to be able to see all those shots because they do recreate a lot of them, and that's where it gets kind of into the fan servicey. Do we have to have that shot, or is it just like we're getting people excited? Which it could be okay. Um, but when it came down to it, I wish that they had used the space a little more originally. There were a lot of callbacks to the first one where it almost started to feel like we're just kind of recreating it a little bit. Not exactly, just a little bit. I will say the things that they bring up, they do a really good job of having a reason to, not just, oh, we're going to show you that, but we actually have a reason for going to this place or showing you this object or whatever it might be, and to work with the narrative. And so in that respect, it was really well done, I think. Yeah, it was a very very cool to watch, and it just kind of keeps going. And I mean, so it was really interesting. Um, so for the people who hadn't seen the trailers and didn't want to know anything, this is where I'll pick back up with just kind of the general um, talking about the rest of the movie. Acting wise, Ewan McGregor was great. I thought he was really well done. The character itself So I went to see this with one of my friends, Josh, who he has his own YouTube channel that I'm gonna plug for a second. He has his own YouTube channel. It's called Elpinor. Take that as you will. Apparently, it's Greek. But yeah, so he's starting to do some video essays, and we're actually going to be collabing a little bit on those, which will be pretty cool. So check that out. I'll put the link in the description below. But we were talking, and we had a little bit differing views on it. He didn't like it as much as I did. He thought it was okay. I liked it because I just thought it was really fun to watch. But there are definitely some things that I'm like, okay, that could have been better. That could have been tied up a little bit cleaner, things like that. But he overall thought that um, Danny's character was a little flat. And I can see that. They do have some things in there that make his character complex, those types of things like drinking issues, things like that, that on the surface would be like, oh, he's a complex character, but really it's just he drinks and then he tries to stop. And so I think the character could have been fleshed out a little bit more, considering everything that happened to him as a kid in the hotel. But I will say Ewan McGregor, I think, except for maybe one or two small parts, did a really great job. This was one of my favorite so far that I've seen of him. Um, it was just very low key, and he's just such a genuinely nice character. I really liked him. I love Ewan McGregor as an actor, and so this one I think was really great for him because he was just kind of able to exude this. You feel um, safe with him as a person, but I one really interesting dynamic I had with him is that he's a really nice person, and you want characters to team up with him. But it's also interesting to see, like, when it comes to actually fighting these villains, these monsters, could he do it? Obviously he has these shining powers, but just in terms of like a physical fight, like is he capable of that? And it's really interesting to see where that goes. And then there's a couple other actors in this movie that they all do really well. I mean, it was really, I mean, the villain. My only problem with the villain is that they paint her out to be this really smart villain, which she is for the most part. But there are some parts where she is a little dumb. She does things that I'm like, if you were really smart, you wouldn't have gone there, or you wouldn't have done that. You would obviously know that this is like a trap or something. So there were just some things, but overall, I think she was one of the more well-written villains that I've seen in a while. She was just interesting. This whole they really flesh out the villains in this one. Like we spend a lot of time with them, and especially in the first act, I think it's like a 50-50 between the protagonist and antagonist, which is really cool. And so all of them, and the little girl, the actress who plays the teenage girl, I think, or she might be in middle school. Um, she was really great too. Again, some things here and there that I thought that line could have been put over a little bit better, but overall, I think she did a really great job. So overall, this movie I think was it was a really good addition that doesn't taint anything that came before it with The Shining, but adds its own little bit of uh, story and tone, and it has that Mike Flanagan look to it. I mean, if you've seen Haunting of Hill House, it has that blue look, that really soft lighting, which I really love. And so it was overall was really great. They do have one interesting choice in terms of some specific characters. I won't say who, but some specific characters that we see that at first I was like, why would you do that if we have the abilities? Without getting into spoilers, it's hard to say, but basically it was just, why would you do that instead of just, you know going the way we probably would go with it nowadays with CGI, or with having um, actors come back for things. Um, I actually do think that what they did was the right way to go with it, though. Again, it sounds really generic because I can't get into spoilers, but I think that was really interesting. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. It comes up a couple times throughout the movie. But I think it was a really cool way to be able to show those characters. Um, yeah, so overall, I really liked it. It was really fun. It has a really good story. I think the pacing is a little off sometimes, with it dragging and then it getting really quick, and then suddenly the third act it is kind of its own thing. But it is such a cool act. It's really, really cool. It's one of those that when you're in it, you are in for the rest of the movie. And I thought it was great narrative, really good acting, and overall, I'm gonna give Doctor Sleep 3 out of 4. Was it perfect? No, it's not gonna be anywhere near The Shining, most likely, but in some respects that's okay because I would rather not say that a movie was really good again if it came at the expense of some of the people who worked on it, at the expense of their mental health or anything like that. Because I know some people, Kubrick really messed them up a little bit. Um, so it's not going to be like The Shining, but it's original in how it is directed, and I think they really went a good tasteful way with it to give us those same characters and same locations and everything, but in a little bit of a different way. So it was really cool. Um, and one other thing that it just the ending, it just has this empty, haunting feeling. Like I know I say haunting, but um, just in a way that you were you saw something before in The Shining, and you see it again here, and something's a little bit different about it. It's a little bit off. It's a little bit more hollow. It was really cool. So overall, yeah, 3 out of 4 for Doctor Sleep. I thought it was really great. So for the channel, I finally got, like I said, my hard drive, and it's all working, ready to go. So I have 2 more reviews that I'll probably be able to get up next week. Now that I finally have it all, I can get back to the editing and everything. They will actually start to be the official ones again, edited and everything. This is just unedited, so sorry for all the pauses. But they'll be edited and they'll have logos and everything, so it'll be back to the official stuff. Thank you for being patient on that. And then my friend Tim and I, who we do the Art Take podcast, we're gonna come out with another one. I believe by the end of this weekend. We have to finish editing it, but we will get that up. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be on deleted scenes, which is something I don't think a lot of people talk about. So it's going to be really cool. So yeah, so make sure to like and subscribe if you want to get all those updates as quickly as possible. And I will see you guys later.